Subject English, lesson number 2.2, page number 37. Helen Keller and Annie Sullivan. Knowledge is love and light and fusion. Helen Keller. Helen Keller became ill at the age of 2 and was left blind and deaf. For the next 5 years, she grew up in a world of darkness and emptiness. She was afraid, alone, and without any anchor. This is the story of her meeting the teacher who would change her life. The most important day I remember in all my life is the one on which my teacher, Annie Mansfield Sullivan, came to me. I am filled with wonder when I consider the immeasurable contrast between the two lives which it connects. It was the 3rd of March 1887, 3 months before I was 7 years old. On the afternoon of the eventful day, I stood on the porch, dumb and expectant. I gazed eagerly from my mother's side and from the ring to and fro in the house that something unusual was about to happen. So I went the door and waited for the steps. Then afternoon sun penetrated the mass of honeysuckle that covered the porch and fell on my upturned face. My fingers lingered almost unconsciously on the familiar leaves and blossoms which had just come for the great and sweet southern spring. I did not know what the future held of marvel or surprise for me. Anger and bitterness had preyed upon me continuously for weeks, and deep anger had succeeded this passionate struggle. Have you ever been at the sea in a dense fog, when it seemed as if an tangible white darkness shut you in, and the great ship, tense and anxious, groped her way toward the shore with plummet and sounding line, and you waited with beating heart for something to happen? I was like that ship before my education began, only I was without compass or sounding line and had no way of knowing how near the harbor was. Light, give me light, was the wordless cry of my soul, and the light of love shone on me in that very hour. So, in this first paragraph, Helen Keller became ill at the age of 2, and she was left blind and deaf. Last 5 years, she grew up in the world of darkness and emptiness. She was afraid. She was alone. And this is a story of her meeting the teacher who would change her total life. The most important day she remembered in her life is one on which her teacher, Annie Mansfield Sullivan, came to her. Then she told about some things, and she said that it was the 3rd of March 1887, 3 months before she was 7 years old. There is an eventful day in her life. On the afternoon, she stood in the porch, dumb and expectant. He gazed at her mother's signs, and from hurrying to and fro in the house, something usual and was about to happen. Now she was waited. She went to the door, waited the steps, but at that time, afternoon sun penetrated the mass on the honeysuckle, and it covered up the porch and fell on her face. Now her finger lingered almost here and there, because she know some familiar leaves and blossoms which had just come for the great to sweet southern spring, and she did not know what the future held of marvel or surprise for her. So anger and bitterness had preyed upon her, and so there is a struggle in her life. Now see, there is an example here, and in this example, she said that you have you ever been at a sea in a dense fog, and at that and there is white darkness everywhere, and there is a great ship, tense and anxious, groped her way toward the shore, and with payment and sounding line, and you waited with beating heart for something to happen. Now, like this, she said that my life is like the sea on the ship, great like great ship, and so only I was without compass or sounding line. Uh, she had no way of knowing how near the harbor was. But in her heart, she said that light, give me light, was the wordless cry in her soul, and the light of love shone on her in that very hour. So, this is the explanation.